bicycles on the path. This is the Hudson River Trust. It's a path that essentially goes from the Battery, the lower end of Manhattan, all the way up the west side of Manhattan. It's popular with commuters. It's popular with tourists who use the sharing bikes, the city bikes, and can be quite crowded on a day like this. And you see those bikes crumble there. We also want to point out that there are indications that the perpetrator in this case may have produced a BB gun or a paintball gun, but was engaged by police, and there was gunfire. Again, the perpetrator has been taken to the hospital here as you get a little aerial scene. This is the West Side Highway. This is in the Tribeca neighborhood. You continue south and you get towards the Ground Zero area and the financial district. And the number of schools, a public school, and as well as that high school. Let's go back to Savannah now, who has more for us.
I just wanted to tell you, Lester, in the last 20 seconds, I'm seeing a lot of activity, FDNY, fire engines, all coming toward the scene here. Much more activity than I probably was standing here 20, 25 minutes, and now I see 1, 2, 3 fire trucks coming right now toward the scene. So it just seems that the activity has picked up, and I'm sorry to tell you, I don't know why. I see it as well.
Okay, and we saw a still shot of a vehicle that was involved. It's not clear if that's the one the perpetrator was driving, but you saw it had a crumpled front end there and it was in the middle of the highway. This is about, I think, a 4, maybe 6-lane highway, 3 in each direction here that, again, goes up the west side of Manhattan. Kristen Dahlgren is also positioned somewhere there in the Tribeca area near the scene. Kristen, what can you tell us from your vantage point?
Hi there, Lester. I'm, I believe, south of where Savannah is, and we've been pushed back by the police. Still an active investigation going on. I saw at least 2 people on stretchers being treated by EMT. We are now waiting. We're told that the mayor of New York is on his way, as is Governor Cuomo. So they will have more information and are expected to brief the press as soon as they get to the scene. What I saw when I arrived on scene at Savannah was a lot of police and fire activity, sirens blaring as we came to the scene, and then parents yelling. Savannah mentioned that school. There were parents trying to get through the police tape, trying to get to their children to make sure that they were safe. So a lot of panicked parents trying to make their way here. It looks like now they have been able to get near that school and ensure that their children are safe. But a massive, massive police presence down here in Lower Manhattan right now as we try and get to the bottom of this.
Let me bring people up to speed. If you're just tuning in, this is an NBC News special report. We're covering an unfolding situation on the in southern Manhattan, New York City, where a vehicle was apparently driven on a closed-off bike path area. We know that there are multiple fatalities. We do not have a specific number, but we're told multiple fatalities. The driver of the vehicle involved, which it may be the vehicle you're looking right there, is reported to have produced a simulated weapon, perhaps a BB gun or a paintball gun, and was engaged by police who fired, obviously, real bullets at that person who's been taken to a hospital. Savannah Guthrie is... this is happening, as she pointed out, near where she lives, so she's very close by. Savannah, what are you seeing? We've lost Savannah for a moment. We heard, we saw fire trucks a few minutes ago. They had hoses out. We do not know if that's related to what's happening here. Whatever occurred here happened well over an hour ago, but police trying to piece together what's happening. They have not briefed reporters yet. Typically, that's going to happen. We're told the mayor is on his way or is already there. Typically, at some point, they will break off and brief reporters. But as we tell you, a truck, driven down a pedestrian. It's a pedestrian and bike path, frankly, that goes down Manhattan through this area. And that's where apparently a number of people were struck. And again, multiple deaths is what we're being told right now. Savannah, we have you now.
Hi, Lester. Well, I'm still seeing the police activity coming toward. It seems coming toward this area of interest. So it's not exactly winding down. Although, as you said, we've been hearing that the shooter is in custody, and we still have just a flurry of activity. A lot of people. The crowd is only growing. They're being held back. So, you know, it's just one of these rush hour crowds now. People aren't able to really get anywhere, and I'm seeing I'm about 1 block away from the school, the highway. There's a bridge, a kind of pedestrian bridge that goes across, and I'm told it happened right there. And, you know, many people say they heard multiple gunshots. I know we're reporting now that potentially it was some kind of BB gun or toy gun, and that police engaged. So we're not sure what the story is with the gunshots yet. But again, just a lot of people and a lot of questions down here, and no indication that the police activity, the law enforcement activity, is winding down.
We should also point out that New York City has prepared for events like this. They have a 1,500-person unit called the Critical Response Command. They practice for these kinds of events. They study things that have happened overseas. We don't want to suggest that we know what the motivation here was, but know that they watch the various things that play out not only in this country and around the world. They're typically armed with helmets, heavy body armor, and M4 automatic weapons, and you often see them around touristy areas, crowded areas in New York City. Again, these are the aerial views. It's an area where Tribeca, Battery Park City, we saw a picture of Manhattan Community College. It is also, it looks like it's roughly in front or very close to a high school that you may recall on 9/11 that students actually saw the devastation just a few blocks south of them at the World Trade Center, where they bore witness to much of the catastrophe of that day. And here again, the picture along the bike path. This is the Hudson River Trust. It's a lovely area. I have ridden through there many of times, including in the last month. A lot of tourists there. New York has a robust bike sharing program. Tourists go through there. Commuters who don't want to brave the streets. This is what makes it special, is it's separated from the traffic by about a 2 or 3 foot wall, so you feel safe as you go down that area. But again, quite crowded with folks. NBC's Tom Costello is monitoring the events here. Tom, what can you tell us?
Well, we don't know, and I think everybody is asking themselves, is this terror related? We simply don't know at this point. However, we would make a very quick point, and that is that the NYPD's, it would appear their Hercules unit was on the scene very quickly. That is the tactical response unit that is always up, standing up and on the streets of New York and able to respond very quickly. We have also, as you know, Lester, seen many cases over the last several years of terror events or even criminal events in which the suspect simply used a vehicle, whether that was in Nice or whether that might have been in Los Angeles for various incidents, for London as well. This has at times been the choice for people who wanted to take out their anger, or either for criminal purposes or terror purposes. We don't know what's happened there on the ground in that area, in the Tribeca area. I would make the point that this happened right as the schools were letting out. Stuyvesant High School right next to this location, which is one of the elite high schools there in New York City. So this could have been an incident in which you had maximum numbers of people on the street and on the bike path.
And Tom, let me interrupt you there. To that point, WNBC, our station in New York, is now reporting 6 dead, 15 injured in this incident here in Lower Manhattan today. 6 dead, 15 injured, according to our colleagues at WNBC in New York. And you see those bicycles, which have given us all the indication of just how serious and grave this is. Twisted bicycles on the bike path, a bike path that's not easily accessible to vehicles. There are a few places that you can pull up. I'm trying to recall from my time driving through there, I thought and I believe there are stanchions at places where cars can come through, but obviously that may not be entirely the case, as this vehicle was able to, it looks, go southbound. So the Hudson River would be off to his right, going southbound and mowing down apparently people who were on this bike path. There's the view of Lower Manhattan. West Side Highway, Chambers Street. This is roughly the area where it happened. That's New Jersey and the other side of the Hudson River that you're looking at of that map. Savannah Guthrie again continues to tell us what she can from her vantage point there. Savannah?
Hi, Lester. Yeah, you know, I think there are stanchions for part of the entryways for the bike path, but I mean, if you wanted to just go right off the West Side Highway onto a bike path, I think you could if that was your intention. I did just see some more activity about I would say 2 to 3 ambulances and a bunch more police cars headed to the scene, which is telling again because it seems like there's activity headed that way. I did see one fire engine appear to depart the scene. And again, I just to kind of give you, and folks who are listening around the country, I mean, this is a very residential kind of part of Manhattan. There are a lot of kids, as you said, Stuyvesant High School is right here. PS 89, the public school, 89, 289, right here on the corner. And I actually personally know a couple of kids who attend that school who heard gunshots. One young boy heard the gunshots and actually I think he must have just been leaving school and was able to run all the way home. At the same time, his father ran to the school having heard the gunshots from the grocery store nearby. And then when he got to that school, they were all under lockdown. But as I understand it, that whole family is home safe now. But the point is that this is an area that there's a park. I'm standing right by a park. We're a block away. This is a very active trick-or-treating time and area. A lot of kids getting out of school. I was about to pick up my daughter and take her trick-or-treating. So, I mean, it's just it's just shocking, you know, and it bears repeating. This is also very close to the World Trade Center. I don't think it's so close that you necessarily would make that connection. But, you know, it's literally in the shadow of the World Trade Center down here, as you well know, Lester. And I'm still on this corner not being let through. There's the police activity and just a crowd of hundreds growing, people wondering what's going on and not being able to get through.
Savannah, for folks who are just joining us, this is an NBC News special report covering the incident in New York City where, according to WNBC, 6 people have been killed, 15 injured after a vehicle plowed down a protected bike path. And you see some of the crumpled bikes here just beyond those police officers who were preserving the crime scene. The suspect, the perpetrator in this case, apparently exited the vehicle. The early reports indicating had a paint gun or a BB gun, some kind of non-lethal gun. Police fired. That person's been taken to a hospital. We believe that's the vehicle you're looking at, the pickup truck there in the middle of the left side of your screen. There have been fatalities. I'm trying to recall. I lived across from that path many years ago, and I seem to recall around 2005, 2006, 2007, there was a bicycle that was run down. I believe that involved an impaired driver who had gone up on the path at nighttime. But New York City has taken enormous steps to try to protect crowded areas. They put in giant concrete blocks around tourist areas. They've put stanchions around areas like this. But and I've talked to NYPD about this. It's taking your best guesstimate as to what needs to be protected. Not every sidewalk, of course, is protected in a city of this size. Savannah Guthrie continues to report from the telephone. She is there just across from the scene. Savannah?
Hi, I just wanted to add one fact. I have a friend who lives in the building at 400 Chambers, which is this very block. It would be a block away from where this seems to have happened, who says that there are police in her lobby and she's not being permitted to leave. Nobody in the building is being permitted to leave, and they're not sure if it's the cars that they're looking at around there, but for whatever reason, they're still being held right where they are. And this is the building that's at 400 Chambers. That's right at Chambers Street and the river, right at that River Terrace. So it's right where this activity is. I just wanted to add that.
All right, Savannah Guthrie, thank you very much. And firefighters now making their way down the bike path. We don't know at what point this person jumped onto the bike lane, how far he traveled. We did see police activity as far north as Greenwich Village, which would be a quarter to a half mile from the scene of where this came to an end. We don't know if it started there or if that is the staging point. We also don't know the motivation. We know, of course, over the last several years that vehicles have been a weapon of choice in terror-related attacks. No one has characterized this as terror or whether this was somebody perhaps fleeing a crime. We don't know. We're waiting for a statement. All our minds obviously going to the same place, but we simply don't know right now. So we'll ask you to bear with us as we try to get as many answers as we can. Tom Costello is watching and monitoring all this. What do you have to add, Tom?
Well, I've actually gone back and looked at how recently we have seen these types of incidents. And again, we don't know if this is terror or if this is a criminal act, but we do know that we've seen this in Nice in the last year and a half, in London, in Australia, in Times Square. You may recall last May we had dozens of people injured, one person killed in an incident. In Barcelona, Germany, Stockholm, Israel, Charlottesville, of course, when that woman was run over by an alleged white supremacist. There have been a lot of these low-tech, if you will, attacks on individuals, really just innocent citizens in the last year and a half to 2 years. And there is some reporting this afternoon that this may have been, in fact, an intentional act, that this Home Depot truck may have been rented. The suspect, for whatever reason, was armed with a fake weapon, either a BB gun or a paintball-type weapon, when he chose to drive his vehicle, we're told, the wrong way down a bike path. And it would appear that all of the injuries and perhaps all of the deaths are associated with that truck running down the bike path. And we can also tell you that now the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force has joined the NYPD on looking into what exactly has happened in Lower Manhattan and the Tribeca area and whether, in fact, it is terror-related. Lester?
All right, Tom Costello with that. As we noted, they have taken steps to protect against truck attacks in many parts of New York, primarily large tourist areas. Times Square, where a car plowed into a crowd several months ago, is one of the places where they have added these big concrete blocks. These critical response command officers, often in full body armor and heavy weapons, often patrol in these areas on the lookout for just this sort of thing. But as they note, even at 1,500 officers, they can't be every place. In this case, police were close enough, though, to engage the suspect after he apparently ran into something or another vehicle there a little bit farther down this path, but not before running down several people. And again, 6 confirmed dead, according to WNBC. 15 injured. This is the beginning of the rush hour in New York City. This is a time that path it would normally be quite crowded with commuters. Again, New York City has a very robust bike sharing program that has attracted a lot of people, not only locals, but also tourists. And it would be quite crowded on a nice fall day like this. We're going to pause here for just a moment as stations join us, others leave us. All right, we are back on with you here as we cross the bottom of the hour for stations just joining us. This is NBC News continuing coverage of an incident in Lower Manhattan, New York City, where a vehicle has apparently run over a number of people on a protected bike path area. WNBC, our station in New York City, is reporting 6 dead, 15 injured. There's a shot from above the scene here. The West Side Highway is about a 6-lane highway. There's a picture that doesn't require any description there. You see some of the of what has happened. There's a school bus. We don't know if that vehicle was struck or not. We haven't heard anything about a school bus being struck, but it stopped there in the middle of the intersection. Crowds gathering. There's our 2 schools here, an elementary school, a large high school. There's the Manhattan Community College. This is the view along the path here. These are still shots here, again, looking at the bike path, the emergency vehicles on it. There's the center divider of the West Side Highway. The suspect reportedly, after striking another vehicle, left his vehicle and produced what appeared to be a lethal weapon. The early reports are it might have been a paintball gun or a BB gun. Police responded with gunfire. The suspect was taken into custody and taken to a hospital as we look at these aerial views now of the West Side Highway in New York City. We have not gotten an official police statement or a briefing. We do expect one at some point. We know the mayor made his way to the scene, Mayor de Blasio, so we would expect some kind of briefing, but this may be a case where the crime scene extends for quite a distance, quarter, perhaps a half mile. This is looking, again, Battery Park City area, and between those buildings is roughly where the point of impact was as this vehicle hit another vehicle, and the driver exited and was engaged by police. Our Savannah Guthrie remains on the scene. She is joining us from by telephone. Savannah, what more can you tell us?
I just saw an officer from the NYPD who said there would be a briefing at headquarters at 5:15 Eastern time. So that was just one person shouting to some of us reporters who've gathered here on the corner. To hear the helicopter, still very much an active scene. And a lot of people. This is my neighborhood, Lester, so I'm getting a lot of emails and texts from friends who live in this area. One friend saying that she lives right at 400 Chambers, which is pretty much on this same block, not being permitted to leave her building. Police seem to be checking out something, perhaps a suspicious vehicle. That was the rumor inside her building. And then I've got friends whose kids go to school right here at PS 89. It's a middle school and an elementary school. And a lot of these kids heard these gunshots and started running. And a lot of them are worried, obviously, wonder if it's any kids that may have been caught up in this, and we don't know that, of course. And as you mentioned, Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, on his way, if not here already. We had heard word that Governor Cuomo was on his way. So right now we have just a crowd of people standing on the corner. People, in fact, I see a woman right now trying to walk toward the scene and being told to stay back rather vehemently by one of the uniformed NYPD officers right here on the scene. Another ambulance headed there, another police van headed right now. So that's the situation here right now. And this is, it's just at a moment when schools are letting out. This is really near the downtown area where there's a lot of the courthouses, all that kind of activity. Rush hour, as you mentioned, the West Side Highway, a major thoroughfare up the west side of Manhattan, schools getting out, and trick-or-treating, this is a huge residential neighborhood. It would normally be right now full of kids in costume, but instead we see police tape and hundreds of people standing on the street corner wondering what exactly went on here.
Yeah, and Savannah, we should point out the Greenwich Village Halloween parade is scheduled for just a few hours from now. That goes by where I live, and I can tell you the precautions they've taken there. They've padlocked mailboxes. They've removed large objects that could conceal weapons. They have blocked off streets for fear of these kinds of things. And this would be taking place probably less than maybe just a half a mile or so from here. We don't know what the status of that parade is, but that's the kind of thing that NYPD is obviously focused and concerned about. A lot of people gathered. In this case, it's commuters going up and down and tourists going up and down the West Side Highway. I think we have a piece of video that we want to show you that WNBC has aired. This may be the perpetrator. This is a person running across the highway, presumably after the impact. Now, it stops there. That may be, we're told, the perpetrator in this case. There's a video again. You really can't make out much other than the guy appears to be in some kind of a hooded jacket. And there is the live scene right now. Kristen Dahlgren is also stationed along this area. Kristen, what are you learning from your vantage point?
Well, Lester, we know now that the mayor and governor are here on the scene. They're at Stuyvesant High School where they're being briefed by the NYPD. They'll then go over to police headquarters where they plan a news conference to fill us in on the rest of the details. As far as that elementary school, we're told it is on lockdown, so some parents inside with kids not able to leave, others still trying to get at their children. One of our producers here on the scene was able to speak with a dad who was a witness. He said he was at that school when he started hearing gunshots. He sort of dove over the children to try to protect them. He has since been interviewed by the police, and we're trying to get more information from him after he speaks with police to tell them what he saw. Still a huge police presence here on the scene. You talked about those stanchions, and it's interesting. Where I'm standing, there are stanchions along that bike path, but if you look to the north, there are at least 2 blocks I can see through with no stanchions blocking the way. So would have been quite easy for a vehicle to get through onto that bike path without anything blocking in this particular area.
All right, Kristen Dahlgren, thank you. And again, we're looking at one of the vehicles here. We also saw a Home Depot vehicle. It's not clear which one was, whether that one was struck or which one the perpetrator was in. There's a vehicle here you see that appears to have a crumpled front end, and that's getting a lot of attention from detectives on the scene there. But this is a large crime scene. Obviously, they have to process. We are told we will hear from authorities at 5:15, so a little over a half hour from now. We expect a briefing at police headquarters, which with lights and sirens is probably 10 minutes from this scene. So we would expect to hear from the mayor and the police commissioner with the first indication. Although, again, WNBC, our New York City station, is reporting 6 dead and 15 injured in this horrible incident that's taken place in New York City. Let's go back to Savannah Guthrie, who has more for us. Savannah?
I'm listening to a witness right now who's saying what he saw. Let's take a listen.
Multiple gunshots, one after another. It was just completely unexpected.
Did you see?
The police were already there.
So did you have any view about him holding up after all?
I'm doing all right. I'm happy that there weren't more casualties than there are. You know.
How are you feeling? How are you holding up after all?
I'm doing all right. I'm happy that there weren't more casualties than there are. You know. The safety of everyone else is my concern, you know.
And how many people did you see on the ground? How many people did you see on the ground?
I only saw one man who was laying on the ground who appeared to be injured.
Did you see the truck actually drive up?
No, so I saw the truck after it was in the accident. I saw smoke coming out of it, but I didn't see the actual collision. I heard it was with a bus, but I didn't see the actual
What kind of bus? A school bus?
I'm not sure. I just heard a bus.
Okay.
And you said, did the man look like he was armed? Did he have any sort of weapon on
The
him?
man who was being arrested was not putting up any fight. I heard that the man who did the shooting got out of the car with 2 guns in his hand, but that is also just something I heard.
How would you
I didn't
describe,
see
what
it.
did he look like? Old, young, tall, short?
The man that I saw looked about 30, a larger man, but I didn't get a great view of him. And then the other man that ran, I never saw at all.
When you say not putting up a fight, did he look like he was injured?
No, he was just on his knees. He had his hands behind his back, and he was, you know, it seemed like a normal arrest.
Did he seem calm, or what was his demeanor like? Just describe more of that.
His face was away from me, so I just saw the back of his head, but he didn't seem like he was putting up a fight. He was, you know, he was just on his knees getting arrested.
It's Halloween. At first, did people think this was a hoax?
Did you see people, how they looked?
Well, there were police going all on the highway. Their traffic was completely stopped. I mean, it was a mess for at least an hour, the roads. But, I mean, that's the least of anybody's concern.
And John, can you take us again where you were? Again, take us through your perspective of where you were. And what,
I was walking down the West Side Highway.
Like, you know what street? Where we are on Chambers, so.
It's in front of Stuyvesant School, okay. Just on the West Side Highway.
Roughly around what time?
Roughly 3:30 or so. It's a tough question.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay. So there. And so, what did you see? What did you see first when all this happened?
The first thing I noticed was the man who was laying on the ground, surrounded by police officers. And then immediately after that, he was right next to the other man who was being arrested. And then after that, I noticed the car that was clearly destroyed. So.
The person who was hurt.
The Home Depot truck.
The person who was hurt. How did they get treated? Did an ambulance come for them?
Yes, I saw an ambulance rolling up. We had to leave before he was put into the ambulance, so I wasn't even able to see if he was dead, alive, or anything like that. But he was, when I saw him, he was laying face down on the street, clearly looking severely injured.
Did anyone try and help him? Any good Samaritans come up or anything like that?
No, there was police on the scene already. I'm sure if Samaritans tried to, they would have been just told to go back.
You must have been thankful then that police were there already to help with the situation.
Yeah, and I was extremely thankful for the women and children that were running towards me, because if they weren't there, I most likely, the time it took me to get there, I would have been right at the shooting when it took place.
And did you say it was frantic on the street? What was the...
It was, yeah, definitely chaos. There was a lot of people seemed very scared, but I mean, everyone also that I saw was just thankful that they weren't right there.
Did you see a lot of kids around?
There were, yeah, it was right when the school's getting out. There were lots of kids, yeah.
Did you see a lot of people running toward the people who we've heard fatalities on the West Side Highway, casualties?
I didn't see too many people going towards it. I mean, a lot of people were just walking past it, just had places to go. That's, you know, how New York can be sometimes. But
and John, just in terms of response,
not the perpetrator. The man on the ground who was not the perpetrator. Was he injured? And if he was injured, how do you think he got injured? Was he shot? Was he hit by a vehicle?
He was laying face down on the ground. He appeared to be injured, but I am not to say how he was injured.
He was shot, or
I could not
just
tell.
Laying on the ground?
I could not tell. He was just laying face down on the ground on the highway.
Okay, thanks.
All right, John. John Williams, thanks very much, and glad you're okay. We're talking with John.
All right, that's a man who apparently witnessed the apprehension of the suspect in this case, who we believe was driving that rental truck that you're seeing in the middle of your screen there, and may have been the person that ran into several people on a protected bike path along the West Side Highway, along the Hudson River Park Trust today, killing, according to WNBC, 6 people, 15 people injured. We should tell you that we've heard from our folks at the White House. The president has been briefed on what's occurred here by Chief of Staff Kelly, and he'll continue to update him as he knows. We don't have any word on a motive here, but Tom Costello, you're getting some indication of what they're looking at.
Lester, senior law enforcement sources are telling us that the NYPD is now investigating this as, in fact, a terror incident in New York City. And that would, of course, fit into this profile that we have seen over the last several years, in which terrorists around the world have used trucks and cars to mow people down. And it was a tactic advocated by ISIS very publicly. We've seen it in Nice, in London, Australia. We've seen it before in Barcelona, Germany, Stockholm, Israel. Those are the known terror attacks involving cars and trucks. And of course, we've also seen it in individuals who seem to be mentally deranged. For example, in New York City in Times Square. And then we had the case over the summer in Charlottesville when somebody killed and ran down a woman in the protest. But as it relates to the NYPD now viewing this as a possible terror incident, there is a track record in which ISIS and Al-Qaeda have advocated exactly this kind of attack, and it's been used around the world very effectively in injuring and killing scores of people.
And we should note this all taking place virtually in the shadow of Ground Zero. It's about a 10-minute walk just south from here to the World Trade Center Memorial and Museum, and of course the Freedom Tower along the West Side Highway. This taking place, in fact, in front of a school where you may recall from that horrible day, high school students witnessed the disaster as it unfolded there at 9/11. But right now, as Tom noted, a possible terror incident here. Police will not rule anything out in these cases, but they have to obviously look in that direction given the nature of the weapon here. Jim Kavanaugh is an NBC News security analyst who's following this along with us. Jim, what avenues here do police take in a case like this?
Well, they go right to the suspect, Lester. That's, of course, the key. And when he got out of the truck, was he yelling anything that might indicate his motive? Officers who stopped him and may have shot him, would be able to understand that and know that. And they would report that to the detectives and the Joint Terrorism Task Force and, NYPD's critical incident team. So they would know what he said, how he acted prior to being stopped. And depending on his injuries, can he be patched up quickly and interviewed? Because he has all the answers in his head, in his wallet, in his computer, in his phone, and then they work out from there in giant concentric circles to see if there's any other actors, or is he acting by himself.
And the vehicle appears to be a rental vehicle, so I would assume even by now they will have probably tracked down the rental records here to figure out if potentially anyone else is involved.
Right. I'm sure that detectives are already at the Home Depot. You'll be pulling the video, interviewing people there. That goes pretty quickly. And, we've seen attacks around the world by terrorists who use rental vehicles. That's been, more than a few times. And sometimes the vehicle is stolen, the driver is killed or kidnapped. But other times they just use a rental vehicle. And, of course, the length of this crime scene, Lester, as Savannah reported on the ground and other reporters on the ground, 7 to 14 blocks, so, on a pedestrian area. So, someone who's drunk or berserk may crash, may not go all that length, but someone who's trying to run people down and has no other vehicle to block them because it's a pedestrian path can just continue on and on and on until somehow someone can stop them.
Yeah, I spent time a few months ago for a story with the Critical Response Command in New York City. This is what keeps them up at night. They've seen it happen in other places around the world. They know they can't be everywhere. They have done their best to put stanchions and blocks to prevent vehicles from leaping on curbs. They were already prepared for a I guess you could consider a high threat event that's supposed to take place here in just a few hours. The Greenwich Village Halloween Parade up 6th Avenue in New York City, not far from here. That was going to bring out a robust police presence to secure that. Now they're dealing with this situation here along the West Side Highway, where, as we've noted, 6 people, according to WNBC, have been killed, 15 people injured. We are standing by for a briefing from police officials and perhaps the mayor. We're told that's going to come about 5:15, a little less than a half hour from now. We expect to carry that. They're going to be holding that at the One Police Plaza, the police headquarters there, also in Lower Manhattan. Savannah Guthrie remains on the scene for us. She's watching the comings and goings and hearing what's being said there in the crowd. Savannah?
And when I look down to see where the truck went.
All right, we'll get back to Savannah. Kristen Dahlgren is along the West Side Highway as well. Kristen?
Hi there, Lester. And they are still loading up patients into ambulances here. We are now, an hour plus after this happened. EMT still on the scene. I just saw them put a middle-aged gentleman. He was alert and awake, but his from the neck down, sort of wrapped up under blankets. It's cold out here. They've been treating him on the scene. They finally brought an ambulance over, loaded him onto a stretcher. He was talking to paramedics. They put him into the ambulance and sort of telling he had a bicycle helmet at his feet on that stretcher with him. So presumably he was on his bicycle on this bike path here. We're about 2 blocks, I'd say, from where the vehicles finally came to rest. So I'm not sure how far he was traveling along this bike path, but this gentleman was here on the south side of where this started, where the police tape is now taping off the scene. The vehicle came to rest about 2 blocks north of here. So quite a ways that he may have been driving along that path. And as I see them now loading another person onto an ambulance, this person as well looks to be alert and speaking with police. Not a huge urgency to get them off the scene. They've been working on this person for quite some time, and another person being loaded up. So several injured where we are here.
All right, Kristen, thank you. And we should note Home Depot is confirming that it was a Home Depot pickup truck that was rented. They are cooperating, certainly, and working with authorities to track down more records as well. Tom Costello, what do you have?
We now have law enforcement sources telling WNBC's Jonathan Dietz, who is as part of the NBC News investigative unit, that the suspect specifically did, in fact, seem to target the school bus. We have some photographs of that school bus that seems to have been involved in an accident, and now law enforcement sources saying that that school bus was targeted. It had children, at least 3 children inside, and that the driver allegedly screamed Allah Akbar while carrying 2 fake weapons. The suspect described as somebody who looks like he was of middle